You have Joaquin Phoenix, one of the best actors to ever grace us with performances, playing Napoleon Bonaparte, and it's directed by Ridley Scott. Well, you would think this movie would be one of the best of the year, and sadly, I actually found this movie to be quite a bit of a mess, and the more and more I think about it, the less I like it. Now, I'm definitely excited to hear your guys' thoughts on this one because it seems like critics are very split down the middle. After that screening, I talked to some, and some people loved it, had a blast with it, and others, yeah, they were in the same camp as me. I just didn't understand what Ridley Scott was going for in here. And I gotta be honest, just straight out the bat, Ridley Scott very much is hit or miss for me. Sometimes he puts out rock star films like The Last Duel, and in that same year when The Last Duel came out, he put out The House of Gucci, which gave us Jared Leto as Paolo.
Never confuse shit with chocolato.
Me and my best friend still make fun of that performance to this day, and I understand that's not all of Ridley Scott, but I really come down to the same stances that Ridley Scott sometimes makes all-star, epic, classic movies, and other times he just makes films like this. And I think for the most part, I can kind of understand what he was going for with Napoleon, and I don't think his direction is actually the terrible part of it all. But in the end of the day, the director does oversee everything from scripts to editing and all the way to the finish line of getting the movie made. And in the end of the day, I do have to blame Ridley Scott once again for this. So if you don't know what Napoleon's about, it's an epic that details the checkered rise and fall of the French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte and his relentless journey to power through the prism of his addictive, volatile relationship with his wife, Josephine. And again, his wife is played by Vanessa Kirby. Napoleon's played by Joaquin Phoenix. That's about all you need to know. Even with my stipulation on Ridley Scott, I still went into this movie pretty excited because, again, I never know what I'm going to get from Scott, and I was kind of hoping for a little bit more of Gladiator Ridley Scott here, a return to form of some sense, and let's get my pros out of the way. Flat out, first off, the film is gorgeous and stunning. There's no denying that the cinematography is exquisite, the costume design is excellent, the production design is top tier. Ridley Scott never makes a cheap looking movie. Every movie this guy makes always looks detailed, highly engrossed, lived in, and the same thing goes for every single one of the epic action sequences in here. These are some of the finest in Ridley Scott's career. I would go as far to say I was really blown away by the portrayal of these epic scenes, specifically Waterloo, which I think will go down as one of the best action sequences of the year. They are visceral, they are brutal. You see cannons absolutely massacring people. I mean, if you want to be engrossed in a battle sequence, this is one of those top tier ones. And weirdly enough, they're very scattered throughout the film, which makes sense into the terms of the way that the story is told, but it's funny because I would start dozing off, and then I would wake up because cannons were shooting off, and I feel like he did that on purpose, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Joaquin Phoenix as well, I actually think gave a pretty damn good performance. I've seen some people say he's a little bit miscasted. For me, don't think he was miscasted. I do still think there's an issue with him not doing an accent in here. I think that is actually a downfall of this, but in a way, I think he kind of went for like a parody version of Napoleon at times, but I also don't think that his performance sometimes mixes with the tone of the overall film. Sometimes the film has this overly self-serious thing, and then at times it's like absolutely hilarious in the way that it's kind of detailing this volatile relationship. There's one part where he goes under a table. I don't know what they were doing there. But I digress. I thought Phoenix was good in here. Not great, not top tier performance, but there were times in here where I thought he was fantastic. And Vanessa Kirby is just phenomenal in here as well. I've read that this film actually had originally a 4-hour cut. And if you've seen Ridley Scott, you know his longer cuts are typically the better versions of the films, and I think that's really where I can start to center down into my best and worst of this film. The film does feel like something that was 4 hours long and just snipped in the editing room to get it down. And ends up making the film feel very much as a mess. And I digress that it just didn't really pertain anything to me, any emotional stakes. It felt like I was just going through a montage of sequences through Napoleon's life. and I was just never, one, learning more about Napoleon, nothing deeper to him. And same thing goes for all the different sequences. Like, they talk about how Napoleon was this incredibly strategic general, and you never see any of the parts of that, really. There's one small scene, but it's battle, then drama, battle, then drama, and you never see the strategicness of him going into these battles. And the same thing with his relationship with Josephine. Not to say that Vanessa Kirby and Joaquin Phoenix didn't have chemistry. I think they had fine chemistry. Nothing that blew me away, and I think that was kind of the point. But I don't know what they were trying to do there. Again, like I mentioned, sometimes it just came off very cheesy and against the self-seriousness of this film, which very much just related to the film having an overall struggling and mixed themes and genres that really, in the end of the day, made me just go, I don't understand what Ridley Scott was trying to make with this film. And these are all the things I was interested in because I didn't know a lot about Josephine going into this. I didn't know a lot about his relationship. I knew about the strategicness and all that, but they just kind of played it off as a parody at times, and it came off as that because it was so one note. And don't get me even started with the sex scenes in here. Like, I don't know if Ridley Scott just keeps doing this on purpose, but like it seems like a lot of his movies have unintentional, funny sex scenes.
And we go somewhere we've never been before. Not just entertained.
And this one goes the same. I don't get it. When I say that I left work early to go view this movie, I left work thinking, okay, Ridley Scott's gonna deliver me the goods, and he didn't. Very frustrated by Napoleon because I find that this film has all the layouts of being one of the best films of this year. Top tier talent, top tier cast, incredible technical achievements here. And then just once again, an absolute messy story. And a story that doesn't understand what tone or really much what kind of story it wants to tell in Napoleon's life. If you have that 4-hour cut, I understand that this is going into theaters and this will one day release on a streaming service such as Apple TV. And maybe then we'll get the 4-hour cut. Maybe that'll be the version that's better. But grading the version that is now coming out into theaters that most people will see, it's not good, and I wouldn't recommend it personally. Really sucks to say. So with all that said, I'm going to give Napoleon a D+. I was really disappointed in this one. I thought this would be one of the best films of this year. Even if I am not the biggest Ridley Scott fan, I went into this still hopeful that he would deliver something just as great as Gladiator. And maybe we'll have to wait for Gladiator 2. So that's my review of Napoleon. Make sure to leave your thoughts down below. Hit that like and subscribe button. And look out for a ton more movie reviews coming up soon. So of course, until next time, stay classy.